It's the close season, the rivers are closed, and so it's time maybe to try and get a few bites on the canal. We're going to go through how we're going to tackle the canal. This particular stretch, I've not fished it before, to be honest, and it's very, very coloured. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is use some slick shads that I've been doing, I've been doing reasonably well on those. And because of the coloured water, I'm going to go in quite bright, I think, like a lemon tiger and like a white or something really, really dark. I think it's not going to be a day for the natural lures, I don't think. So yeah, let's run those shads through the water and see how we get on. So as you can probably see, the water is very, very coloured. Along here, definitely some fairly bright lures is what's in order, I think. So when I'm out on the canal, I do tend to mix things up a bit. Quite often, I might be using crankbaits or little creature baits. But more recently, I have really sort of tried to up my game when it comes to fishing with shads. I do think that there's a lot of small fish in the canal. There's a lot of bait fish. And I think when it comes to sort of like matching the hatch, you can't go wrong with a little shad. And my favourite right now is definitely the slick shad. I particularly like the slick shad in a green pumpkin. That's the 9cm version there. And I've got so much confidence in that. And the slick shad again, 9cm, but in lemon tiger. Obviously I put that on because it's considerably brighter than any of the other slick shads in the box, and the water is so coloured that I put something bright on. Now, more often than not in coloured water, I won't necessarily use bright lures. I will use white or dark lures to create a silhouette. And it might be worth saying that I was ready to drop down to 7cm lures pretty much in all of those patterns. Quite often scaling down when you're struggling is quite a good tactic to try and get a bite. I think there's less than a foot of visibility in this canal at the moment, and the fishing has been really, really tough. One of the lures that I'd like to have a go at on here that have worked well for me on the river before it closed for Zander, and that is the Ultra UV Slick Finesse. I was using these on the river, like I said, and nothing else was working until I put something like this on. Very, very natural, lovely finesse lure, great on a little jig head or on the drop shot. Yeah, this has done well for me for the little Zeds, and hopefully if I put one of them on, it will get me a little Zander today too. But we'll have to find clearer water for those, I think. Right now we need to stick to the bright stuff. What's nice about the canal as opposed to the river is there really is hardly any flow through this section. That means that I can drop this jig head right down to 1 or 2 grams, which is really nice. You get a really nice slow fall on the lure. In terms of the hook size, try and make sure that it's exiting about halfway down the shad. But there we go. That's what's working fairly well on the canal for me at the moment. This one is actually just a 7cm slick shad. Very bright lemon tiger in the coloured water. They're certainly going to see that coming. I've decided to do something that I very rarely do, and I've brought 2 rods out with me. Now that's because I did want to bring out the 14-gram rod, just fishing the slick shads, but to try and improve my catch rate, I wanted to bring out the drop shot and give that a go, because I think maybe these tiny little spiky shads fished really slow on the drop shot might get me an extra couple of bites. I'm running those bright slick shads through the water, but nothing's really doing, so I think I'm going to have to try the drop shot. Just gently bumping the rod tip. Yeah. I wanted it slow. Have I found a technique? Might have done. Slammed it straight away. Tried a few other lures, put the drop shot on. Smashed it. That was very slow. I want it super slow. It's a perch. So there we are. I was running through some slick shads in various colours and sizes, just on a jig head, wasn't getting anything. Slowed things right down with a little spiky shad on a drop shot, first cast, and a lovely chunky little perch. Now, time for a bit of finesse fishing over by the boat. There we go. That's the Zander. I won't get the big camera out, but came over to this boat just there, drop shot right underneath it, and a lovely little Z. So the drop shot has worked quite well, which I'm pleased about. It's definitely picking up some fish. Let's see if we can catch some more. When fishing with the drop shot, especially in this scenario, and I think what's worked here is fishing it incredibly slow. I think there is a danger of overworking drop shots. So you can see I've cast it out and I'm just leaving it. You know, I'm putting in very, very long pauses. Now I'm just giving it a few twitches. That weight, as I say, I've used a weight that's slightly heavier than maybe you'd expect, just to try and encourage me to slow down. You know, I'm hardly moving that weight at all. Sort of on a junction here, where the canal sort of like come together in a junction, which is a classic spot. And I'm wanting to keep it out in the body of that junction without retrieving it towards me. So I'm hardly using the reel handle at all. Literally, just every now and then, twitching the rod tip. And not being afraid to leave it completely static as well. I'm not going to get the big camera out, but we've had a perch, a pike, and a couple of Zander, so now we've most certainly done the treble. I did go a little bit off script there and came away from the very bright slick shads that I've been using up until now and put on a very dark little creature bait. Now, as I said at the start, in coloured water, I don't always feel like I need to go bright. I know it worked for the perch earlier, but sometimes I like just really, really dark, really, really white or light, because I'm wanting to create a silhouette. I think some people think creature baits are things that you just bump along the bottom really, really slowly. But I do think there's a certain type of creature bait that works really well as a search bait. You can fish them with a little bit of pace. Let's have a closer look at this little Strike King creature bait and I'll try and tell you what I mean. So there's a certain type of creature bait that I think works really, really well as a search bait, and it's little creature baits like this one. It's a Rage Crawl by Strike King, and if we have a close look at it, the main thing is its size. So that's about a 2 inch, 2.5 inch in size, like that. Dark in colour, strong silhouette. But the main reason I think it works as a search bait really well is because of these thin appendages. We're not looking for one of these creature baits that have got thick claws. I think those are designed to just sit up off the bottom in that sort of posture and be bumped slowly. Little creature baits like these with thin appendages, we're fishing these with a bit of pace so that you get some movement in those appendages. That is enhanced if you look really closely on each of the appendages on here. You've got a very small ridge, which is it seems like a tiny detail, but that tiny little ridge around the outside of the claw is actually what makes them wave around. You know, does the old Conor McGregor. Woo. Little creature baits like this one, thin, fine flappers or appendages with a little ridge round the outside, absolutely dynamite as little search baits on canals and on rivers. That's me done on that first short session. I found it really tricky, to be honest. Didn't exactly set the world on fire, but I did manage to do the treble. So I did get a perch, a pike and a zander. And it has only been a short session. I think I'm gonna have to go away, have a think about my tactics, maybe try something else on the next one. In terms of the rod that I'm using, it's what I'm using as my general all-rounder at the moment. I think it's a really good, if you only want to take one rod out on the river or the canal, I think this is a great option. My all-rounders have always been around about 14 gram. I feel like I can do almost everything with a rod of that weight. This particular rod, it is the Prism X. It's, like I say, 14 grams, 6'11", just a really, really good all-round rod. It's paired with a Prism X 1000 size reel, perfectly balanced, perfect for chucking these shads around. As you can see, we're back in the car. We gave that spot about 45 minutes, an hour. It was pretty coloured and it was quite tricky. I do think it is time to move on, drive up to the next section and yeah, see if we can find some more fish there. It's even more coloured than before. Oh my God, here. I think it's, what, an old boat canopy or something? Oh God. So I've just chatting to a guy that's on a barge, and this is what you got to do, you see, just to try and work it all out. Does a bit of fishing. He says, yeah, I'm in the wrong area. He said, if I go only about 5 minutes in the car up the road, the water becomes an awful lot clearer. He sort of like pointed me on a spot or two up that way. So straight back to the car. It's only a 5-minute drive. So let's do that now. Oh great, yeah, second chuck and we're snagged. Walked a bit further along the canal, and the water is starting to get a bit clearer. Okay, it's a fish, and it is a little Z. Come on, yes. Typical spring weather, 4 seasons in a day. There we go. Fish on. Come on, be a perch. No, it's a little pike. So we are on a very coloured section of the canal. Very, very nice. It's very coloured, so a very bright slick shad, 9 centimetre. A very reliable lure for me recently. And a lovely perch. Very pleased to have got a result. There's an awful lot of boat traffic stirring up the water, making it even more coloured. So I felt like everything was against me. Happy that the lemon tiger came to the rescue. So that's me done on these little sessions on the canal. I hope you've picked something up from the videos. Certainly, fishing these small little bright shads, whether it's a slick shad or a spiky shad, fished on little jig heads or on drop shot, they seem to have worked in these fairly tough conditions. Very coloured water, go bright and apply a bit of finesse, and I'm sure that's what's worked for me on these little sessions.